Welcome on board to 321 exams. The subject is government. While the topic we're going to be considering today or examining today is pre-colonial politics. Pre-colonial politics. Pre-colonial politics. What does that mean? Pre, it means before colonialism, before the arrival of the British into Nigeria. How did the ethnic groups existed? Because we all know that it was the British that brought all the ethnic groups together. The Hausa, the Igbos, and Yorubas together. Say wa Zo Bia, say wa Yoruba, Zo, Hausa, Bia, Igbo. These are the three major ethnic groups we have in Nigeria. So we want to look at how did the Wa exist? How did the Zo exist? And how the Bia existed before the arrival of the British? And that's why Nigeria is referred to as a very strong nation, because these are three ethnic groups with three different backgrounds coming together to stand as a nation. See, and our differences is our strengths together. So we're going to look at the Hausa Fulani, the emergence of the Hausa Fulani kingdoms. Look at the Igbos. Is that okay? We're going to look at the Yoruba. Is that okay? In this class today. So without understanding, let's look at what they examine and what JAMB expect you to know about the pre-colonial politics, Hausa, Fulani, Igbo, Yoruba. Specific objectives. Number one, the candidate should be able to, one, compare pre-colonial system of governance. Compare. Know what's different between the Hausa, Fulani kingdom system of government with the Igbos. What's different between the Igbos with the what? Yorubas. You're able to know the differences between the Hausa, Fulani kingdom and the Yoruba. What are differences? The political, what the examiner is interested in is the political system. Is that okay? Political system, legislative system, legislative functions, the executive function, and judicial function of these pre-colonial. So how did they exist? Because we didn't exist as a nation that time. We existed differently, separately, we stayed separately. The Hausa Fulani in the north, separately, and in the south, we had the Igbo separate, and Yorubas were separate, existed separately. Now let's start with the Hausa Fulani political system. Now, we all know that the Fulani took over the political leadership of the Hausa after the Jihad War. And the Jihad War we're talking about is called Holy War. That whereby it was led by a man known as Usman Danfodio, who led the Jihad War and conquered the Hausa kingdom. At that time, we had 14 states, 14 kingdoms at that time. Is that okay, of the Hausa land that was conquered by Usman Danfodio. So therefore, they had to submit to Islam. So he came with Islam. That's what they call the Holy War. Jihad War is a holy war. And conquered, they had to submit to Islam. So that's why it's called Hausa Fulani. Is that okay? You can't just see Hausa kingdoms. It's wrong. Because there are two coming together as one. Hausa Fulani kingdoms. Is that okay? So Usman Danfodio led the war in 1804 to 1810. That was when the war took place. 1804 to 1810. The Holy War. And Usman Danfodio, who led the Fulani, led that war and won that war. And that led to the emergence of the Hausa Fulani kingdom. Now, then let's now look at the structure, the political administration of the Hausa Fulani kingdom. Before we proceed, it's worthy for me to also to mention here that the Hausa Fulani kingdom is known to stand with one caliphate. Is that okay? From the caliphate, we have what they call the emirates. Is that okay? From emirates, we also have what they call the districts. This is the setup. This is the hierarchy of how the kingdom. In the caliphate, is that okay? The caliphate is what is divided into two. Is that okay? Is that okay? They now have the emirates. From the emirates, they now break down to districts. So look at that in the course of this study. Are we together? Now let's look at the emirates. Is that okay? Now the caliphate was divided into emirates, and each was headed by an emir. So in the Hausa Fulani kingdom, the leaders are known to be the emirs. Is that okay? He had the responsibility of making laws and enforcing them. Is that okay? In order of his word, his emirates. Are we together? So the emirates are divided. The emirates are what? Are divided in the Hausa Fulani kingdom. Is that okay? Emirates are divided into two. Into kingdoms. And these kingdoms and we are going to look at the positions that the officials occupy. That the officers were occupied. So now the caliphate was divided into emirates, and each was headed by an emir. So emir is what that head the emirates. Is the number one head of the emirates. Then number two, let's look at number two political structure of the Hausa Fulani Kingdom. We have the Waziri. Is that okay? The Waziri is known to be the head of all officials or prime minister or prime what? Minister. Is known to be the most senior advisor to the emir. The most senior advisor to the emir. That's why it's called the Waziri. Waziri is known to be the most senior advisor to the emir. Then we also have what they call the Galadima. Is that okay? He's in charge of the capital. Now let's not forget, how many capitals do we have? How many capitals do we have? We have two. We have the Sokoto capital and we have the Gwandu capital. When Usman Danfodio took over, is that okay? He made his son Bello. Is that okay? Bello, his son, was holding Sokoto capital. While Usman Danfodio was the Sultan, he made himself the Sultan. But the capital was being controlled by his son, who is Bello. Why the Gwandu also is a capital? Is that okay? Because we have two capitals. The Sokoto is the eastern capital. Sokoto, let's look at that. Sokoto is the eastern capital. The eastern capital. Is that okay? Then Gwandu is the western capital. Take note of that. Don't forget that, please. It's very, very important. Western capital. Now, he made his son to be in charge of the eastern capital, that's Sokoto, while the western capital was anchored by his younger brother. Is that okay? Abdullah, that was his name. That anchored the western capital. So the Galadima is in charge of the capital. That's the job, is to protect and run affairs in the capital city. So they had two capitals in the Hausa Fulani Kingdom, which is Sokoto, eastern capital, and Gwandu, western capital. Now, let's proceed now. Now, the next order of hierarchy of political structure, we have what they call the Madawaki. The Madawaki is known to be the commander of the army. Now, sometimes in the UTME question, they can put it, they don't call it commander of the army, they can call who is the minister of defense of the Hausa Pre-Fulani Kingdom. Altogether, who is the minister of defense? It's the same thing as Madawaki. Is that okay? Or Madaki. Is that okay? Madaki or Madawaki. So it's also referred to as the minister of defense. Minister of defense. Minister of defense. Is that okay? Minister of defense. So the Madawaki is the commander of the army. Is that the one in charge of the army. You know, the minister of defense. Then we have the Dogari. The Dogari is known to be the head of police. Dogari is known to be the head of police. And the police for internal affairs, to enforce law and to maintain law and order in the what? In the Emirates. In the Emirates. In the Emirates. Then the next one, we have the Maji. Is that okay? Maji is known to be the what? The chief treasurer. He's in charge of money. All tax collected, all levies, whether it is Jangali, is that okay? Whether it is Zakat, is that okay? Whether it is Jiyaz, is that okay? Like Jangali is called cattle tax. Jangali, cattle tax, is that okay? Then Jiyaz, is that okay? It's called land tax, is that okay? Now, all manner of tax, all the monies, is that okay? Goes to the Maji. Maji, are we together? In charge of what? Of treasury. Sure. Then we have the Sakiruwa, is that okay? Is the river fishing officer, is the chief river fisherman. Is that okay? The chief fisherman, the head of the fishermen. He can also be referred to as the head of what? Fishermen. Sakiruwa. Sakiruwa. That's head of what? Ruwa means water. Are we together? The head of what? The fisherman. Is that okay? They also have what they call the Sakin father. Is that okay? The head of the palace workers. But let's not forget that this is the staff of the Emirates. Are we together? All these people that are working under the emir. Under the what? The emir. They help the emir in the day-to-day running of what? Of government in the pre-colonial period of what? Of the Hausa Fulani. So the Sakin father is the head of all the workers. All together. He's one that control the palace workers. Those that work in the palace. The cooks, the butchers. Is that okay? Is that okay? The drivers, everyone that works in the palace. Is that okay? Is the head of what? That's Sakin father. They also what they call Sakin power. That's the head of all butchers. Is that okay? Head of all what? Butchers. Is that okay? All those in the abattoir where they slaughter animals, whether the sheep, ram, cows. Is that okay? The Sakin power is the head of all butchers. Is that okay? He's one that is the voice of all the butchers in the pre-Hausa Fulani Kingdom. Is that okay? Then also under the Hausa Fulani political structure, we have the Supreme Headquarters, which I talked about in my introduction. The Sokoto and the Gwandu were the seats of the emirs. All together. Now, it's worthy to note that the emir of Sokoto and the emir of Gwandu are the two senior emirs. Is that okay? You see how other emirs that existed that controlled other emirates. Is that okay? Is that okay? So because this Sokoto and Gwandu were the two capitals, Eastern capital and Western capital. Is that okay? Sokoto, Eastern capital, Gwandu, Western capital. So there were two senior emirs, while the rest are known to be lesser emirs. Lesser words, emirs. So the emir of Gwandu controlled the Western Empire, while the emir of Sokoto controlled the Eastern Empire. These are known to be the supreme headquarters of the what? Pre-colonial Hausa Fulani era. Then we also have this district administration. This I told you that first of in the structure, the general structure, we have number one, the caliphate. Is that okay? The caliphate that is now breaks down to what? The emirates. Is that okay? Is that okay? The emirates now breaks down to what? To the district. Now the district are the villages. Is that okay? They are divided. Those small villages. Is that okay? The emir cannot be everywhere. So the emir now also appoint an official who is known as Hakimi. Is that okay? Hakimi now give reports to what? To the emir, the lesser emir. The emir takes it to the senior emirs. Then the senior emirs now take it, is that okay, to the sultan. The sultan of Sokoto. Is that okay? Is that okay? So now, each emirate was divided into districts for administrative convenience. Take note of the word. Administrative word, convenience. Is that okay? Administrative convenience to make it very easy, the job to be easy. And that shows how you see how the Hausa Fulani have what called a centralized system of governance. That's what we refer to it, because all the powers were going to the emir. Is that okay? So all reports, everything must get to the emir. Is that okay? From the Hakimi to the lesser emir, from the lesser emir to the senior emir. Is that okay? So an official known as Hakimi was usually appointed by the emir to administer the district. Is that okay? Administer means to control. Is that okay? To govern. Is that okay? To govern the words, the district. Govern the district. They also have what they call the village head. Were appointed by the Hakimi, the village head, which the Hakimi also appoint people to help him collect tax. I was saying that this village head also help him collect what? Because the Hakimi cannot do everything. He has to also delegate duties to also village head to help collect tax, like Jangali, like talk about. Jangali is cattle tax. Is that okay? You have the GRs. Is that okay? Which is land tax and other tax that are being collected. Now these are the money that are collected to run the caliphate, run the emirate, and also the district under the Hausa Fulani political administration. They also have what called the legislative function. Is that okay? Now the lawmaking function. How did the Hausa Fulani pre-colonial era, how did they make their laws? From where? We should know that what guides them is Islam, the jihad war. That's how Fulani kingdom came into place. The Fulani came with Islam, the holy war. And after that, they imposed Islam on the Hausas. Is that okay? Because the Fulani Islam came from them. Now imposed it on the Hausas. So therefore, what was guiding their constitution was the Quran. The constitution was what? Was the Quran. So Islamic laws were supreme laws of the Emirates. Islamic laws were supreme laws of the Emirates. The Emir had the capacity of making laws on matters which were not covered by Islamic laws. Because there are some matters that are criminals. Is that okay? Criminal offenses that may not be part of the Quran. Is that okay? The Emir has the power to determine how that case will go. Is that okay? And this is one of the problems we have. We will look at the shortcomings of this kingdom. Because sometimes the Emir can judge a matter on feelings. Is that okay? If it's not part of the Quran. Is that okay? So the Emir is one who is also makes the law from the Quran. Then also serve as what? As executive. Also serve as judicial. So we now call the system or the political system of the Hausa Fulani kingdom as a centralized system of government. Centralized political system whereby all the powers goes to the emir, and which is called autocracy or authoritarian system of government, where power is in one person's hand. And we know what that means. When power lies in one hand, that leads to abuse of power. Abuse of what? Of power. So let's look at this. You have looked at the legislative function. The laws are made from the Quran. Laws are made from what? Quran. So the Quran is the constitution in the pre-colonial era of the Hausa Fulani. Quran is the constitution. Now let's look at the executive function. The emir was authoritarian and had absolute power, even though he had a body of advisor. Yet he can ignore or accept advice. Is that okay? There's so many advice, but it's not mandatory for the emir to follow any advice. The most senior advisor of the emir is who? It's a JAMB question. Is that okay? It's Waziri. Is that okay? No matter the advice the Waziri gives to him, he decides to say no. Is that okay? The Galadima. Is that okay? Who is in charge of the palace can also give advice. He can say no. Is that okay? You can say, no, I will not collect your advice. I will not follow your advice. I will not receive your advice. So the emir has a final say in any decision, irrespective of all the channels or number of advisors he has. Sacking ruler, sacking power, is that okay? Sacking father, is that okay? All these advisors, they give him advice, but yet he has the right to say no to this advice or yes to the advice. Then let's look at the judicial function. The judicial administration was based on Sharia law. These laws were administered by judges. The judges are known as alkali judges. Alkali judges are the one in charge of what? Of judging cases. Is that okay? But if they cannot judge any case, they pass the case to what? To the emir. The emir will now judge the case or look at the dispute and settle it. Now, this brings us to the end of this lesson. Thank you for subscribing. See you in the next lesson.